Hello and welcome to another Cliff Reviews Art House. This time I'm reviewing the 1981 film Evil Dead, directed by Sam Raimi. So if you watch my videos regularly, you'll know that horror is definitely not my favourite genre. However, there are a few iconic horror films that I've never seen, and so occasionally I decide to catch up on these. I've never seen Evil Dead all the way through. When I was at university in the 1980s, one of the other students that lived in my accommodation had a bad video cassette copy of Evil Dead. So I did see various parts of the film when he was watching it, but I'd never seen the whole thing. I approached it with interest as I'm a massive fan of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy. Yes, I have a big love of Spider-Man that stems from my childhood, and I particularly love this trilogy, especially the first and second films. And of course, these were directed by Sam Raimi. So what did I think of Evil Dead? I didn't love it. The film is unashamedly low budget, and it uses practical effects, many of which are looking a bit dated. The aesthetic of the film, though, is kind of fun in that low quality way. However, this is just a pure horror film. The type of horror film that I can enjoy uses the horror as a metaphor to make a deeper point. Evil Dead is very straightforward. A group of young people go to stay in a scary house in the middle of the woods, and they encounter an evil force, a force that ends up possessing some of the people. The blood and the gore are pretty extreme in this film, almost in the league of The Substance, although nowhere near as good a film as The Substance. I always had the impression that Evil Dead was super scary. It actually wasn't scary at all. The gory effects are almost comically bad, but kind of fun. Overall, although I appreciate it's only 1 hour and 20 minutes, it still felt a very routine story as the evil force picks off each of the people. The only suspense is to know whether anyone will survive. There are, however, certain things about the film that I did recognise probably contribute to its iconic status. Firstly, the camera work felt really creative. I loved the POV camera moving along the ground, showing us how the evil spirits move around. I also liked the jumpy cuts in the tense scenes. We had these cuts between the close-ups of the faces, and this made it really tense. Evil Dead is also known for use of a shaky camera, and I did appreciate this as well. It definitely looks clunky and old-fashioned, but the aesthetic still works in a kind of nostalgic way. Another point is that I really appreciate a horror film that takes its time to build up the tension. We were almost halfway through before we see any kind of monster, and we never see the spirits as such. We see how they possess the various people staying at the house. So when one of the characters is being chased through the woods, the horror is created by her facial expressions rather than us seeing what's actually chasing her. This feels like intelligent filmmaking to me, even though it's a B-movie style horror film. There's also an element of humour, not ha-ha humour, but the acting and the blood and the gore, they're all exaggerated. I reviewed the Texas Chainsaw Massacre a couple of years ago. I think I did enjoy that more than Evil Dead, probably because the humour was just a little bit more explicit than in Evil Dead. Evil Dead felt a little bit too evil for me, which I guess is why fans of horror films have liked it so much. One thing I do really like is that Raimi used Bruce Campbell, who plays one of the lead roles in Evil Dead, in all three of the Spider-Man films. He plays a different part in each one, but this is just a really nice feature, I think. The Evil Dead is celebrated for its raw energy, its creative approach on a low budget, and what were probably groundbreaking practical effects at the time it was made. There's no doubt that it's a cult classic within the horror genre, and I can see why it's got this status. I do think it has many technical and performance shortcomings, but I am glad that I saw it. I can't recommend it as such, but it is worth watching for students of filmmaking, as it does deserve its iconic status, I think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.